Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to part 3 of my tutorial for the coding assignment associated with Chapter 11 of the Severance Python book. And Chapter 11 is about regular expressions. And this part 3 is going to be a big part, okay? Kind of double the size of a typical tutorial example and exercise. We're going to create a module that is just going to hold a function that we're going to call. It's going to be a function that validates user passwords. Okay. And then we're in that module we're going to have the code for validating passwords. In the main of the module, we're going to have the test code, and then we're going to write a second program that is just going to use the myPassword module. And we're going to be able to use it to force a kind of not so much testing, but to demonstrate. Well, I guess it is a test. We just want to test that we can use the module in another program. Okay, so the functionality is already going to be tested by the testing that is in the module itself, but the ability to import it and use it in its own program is going to be something that we test in the second program that we write. Okay. Now, I'm going to recommend that you follow along and do this because the work that you're going to be doing is closely related. Okay, so your assignment when you get to the exercise is going to be to take this code and add more code to it, and including more testing code, and then to do the testing, and then to demonstrate that you can use it as a module. So you're going to want all this code. All right. So even if you don't normally follow along, you probably want to follow along this time. And because I want to emphasize the way that you would develop this kind of program, I'm going to do this kind of the long way. What I've been doing in order to save time is to kind of show you the whole solution, and then just to walk you through it. So you don't watch me kind of creating the solution. But this case, because we're going to use another kind of approach to unit testing, I want to see you, I want you to see the pieces come together. Okay, so I'm going to build it in front of you piece by piece. I'm not going to be doing the typing while I'm doing it, but I'll be copying in the pieces one at a time. Okay, so we're going to create two .py files. One's called myPassword module, and I have this up right now. Let me close the ones that I was just working on. And myPassword module.py, it says validate password candidate using regular expression search function. Okay, and maybe let's call it a module for validating. To make it clear that it's supposed to be a module with a callable function, and you can import this and use it elsewhere. Okay, now the name of the module, myPassword module, not very professional, but also not likely to collide with any of the standard modules from Python or that are part of the Python distribution, or any additional things that you might be getting from third parties. So I'm not saying that this is the most professionally way to name the module, but it's going to do for now. Okay, so let's see. The module has three parts. One, it just has a single function, validate password, and it takes one a parameter, candidate, that's going to be a string, okay, and it returns a a list, which it starts out as empty, and it has a standard name internally to the function of answer. Typically, I call it either answer or result or something like this. And what this is it's going to contain a list of error messages. Okay, and if it turns out that once we run the function, okay, we return a list. If the list is empty, the password was valid. If we have at least one error message, the password was invalid. Okay. One of the reasons I want to do this is I want to show you this approach. This is an accumulator pattern for error messages. One complaint that you hear often about computer programs is that they don't give you all of the errors at once. You have to discover them one at a time. So you submit something like a password, and it comes back and it gives you one complaint, and then you fix that, and then it gives you the next complaint, and then it gives you the next complaint. So a good principle of interaction design is detect as many errors as you possibly can and report them all. So that's what we're going to do. And that's why this accumulator pattern for the error messages is an important pattern for you to learn. Okay? Okay, what's going to go on in the main? Well, this is an approach I've showed you before. In the main, we're going to do unit testing. Okay? You can do a couple of things in the mains for an importable module. There are times when you need to initialize common data structures and that kind of stuff. But for us, it's just a handy place to put unit testing for our code. Eventually, if you're going to be a professional programmer, you're going to learn a unit testing framework. And if you do that, then probably every piece of code you write, every module you write, is going to have a companion test module. And so in that case, you won't be putting the test code into the main. You'll be putting it into the companion testing code. But this is a good way to kind of see how professional unit testing gets done without having to learn a testing framework per se. And so that's how we're going to do it here. And then the next part that we have is that because this is a module, we're only going to want to run the main if in fact it's being run all by itself. Okay, if we're loading this all by itself, then we're going to run the unit test. If we are importing it, well, the unit tests are just going to be quiet. Okay, and that's how we get that to happen. Okay, so let's look at our other program. I told you this one was double in size, okay? And this one is called Use My Password Module. So let's open that. And this is pretty straightforward, okay? First of all, we need to do the import. And the professional way to do the import is say from module name import function name, okay? And so that's what we've done. And then we have all of our code in the main. So we prompt for a candidate password. Okay. And then we have the code error messages. That's the name of our list. Gets assigned validate password, and then we pass in the password candidate. Okay. And then we say if the length of error messages is equal 0, then print this password is valid. Else, then we want to print all the errors that we can find. Okay. Okay. So for message and error messages, print message. Okay. Well, we know we're going to get at least one because we know that messages is not empty. Okay. If it was empty, we would have satisfied the condition on the if. But we don't know how many we're going to get. Okay. We could get quite a few. It depends on how many test cases we have. Okay. Well, it depends on how many conditions we're testing. That's what I'm actually saying. Okay, so let's get started on the module itself. Okay, so what's the first thing that we're going to do? Well, here are the rules that I'm doing. The password has to be at least 6 characters long. The second one we're going to have, it must include one uppercase letter. The third one, it must include at least one lowercase letter. Okay. The last one, it must include at least one special character. And the special characters that I've included are the exclamation, the @sign, the pound sign, the $sign, the percent sign, the circumflex, the ampersand, the asterisk, the right paren, the left paren, and the period. So it can include all of those. Well, that's going to be interesting because we're going to have to escape some of those characters. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to build it one rule at a time. Okay, and where are the rules going to go? Well, they're going to go right in here. All right, so let's put the rules in. Okay, so here's my first one, and I'm copying this out of my already baked version. Okay. Here's where it's going to go. So, of course, we're going to be testing candidate. That's the name of the parameter. So if we say if the length of a candidate is less than 6, answer append. So answer is a list that holds the error messages. Password must be at least 6 characters long. Okay, that's pretty good. So, what are we going to do? And then we're going to say return answer. Okay, and let's not skip 2 lines there, so it's it. Okay, so then when we run the main, it's going to print unit testing output. It's not doing any testing yet, but let's just see it print unit testing output. Okay, sounds good. Run it. Okay. Unit testing output. Well, that's good, but we don't really have anything there. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add my first test case. So people who are professional programmers, they decide for every bit of code they add, they're going to add 1 or more test cases. Okay. So let's add this. What's the first thing that we want to test? Okay, so just to make it easy to follow the output, we say print, skip a line, test case 1, password too short. Okay, Now, normally when people are using these uh, testing frameworks, okay, um, this is considered the best practice. Okay, you you decide what the input is going to be. In this case, this is a password candidate, capital A, lowercase b, pound sign 45. Okay, so it's going to pass all of the other rules that we haven't implemented yet. Okay, but it's still going to be too short. It's only 5 characters long. So the result that we expect is we expect a uh, we expect a list. We expect to get a list back that has one item in it. Password must be at least 6 characters long, period. Okay? So that is our expected result. Okay? What is our actual result? Well, if we call validate password with the input password, we're going to get back a list that has all the error messages in it. Okay? And one of the really nice things about a Python is it's very good at comparing list to list. So even though lists are pretty complex objects, okay, I can actually pose the question, if the actual result is equal to the expected result, even if that's a list of error messages, and get an accurate answer. So if the actual is equal to the expected, then I'm going to print passed. Else I'm going to print failed. Okay, so again, we're expecting this one to fail. Okay, this is good unit testing practice. You want to test that you can fail the test. You want to test that you can pass the test. Okay, so the first test case is the failing test case. Sounds good. Let's do it. So we're going to run it. And it says right here, test case 1, password too short, passed. Very nice. Okay. Now, are we ready to add more code? Are we ready to add another rule that we have to pass? No. Okay. Why is that? Well, because right now we haven't tested what happens if we have a good one. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add another test case. That's the next thing I do. And I'm kind of thinking ahead when I create this. I want to skip a line so I can tell the difference between my test cases. Okay, I'm putting in test case 2. And if I wasn't thinking ahead, test case 2 would be the password is long enough. So I just give one with 6 characters. But eventually, I want to make sure that I pass all of the rules, not just the length. So what I decided to do is create a password that meets all of the criteria. So all of the criteria as we understand them now is at least 6 characters long, at least one uppercase letter, at least one lowercase letter, at least one special character. So uppercase, lowercase, special character, 3 numbers. The 3 numbers padded out to a length of 6, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to expect that to pass. So we say that the expected result is the empty list. Okay, that's how you can tell if it passed. You don't get any error messages back in the list of error messages. Very good. So now we have an expected result. We create the actual result. So we can say we're going to call validate a password with the input password again. And if the actual result is equal to the expected result, we're going to print pass, else we're going to print failed. Okay? Now, we're going to expect this one to pass. Okay, so what is interesting is you build these test cases so that the test case passes in the right situation. In test case 1, what it takes to pass is for it to catch the error. Okay, in test case 2, what it takes to pass is for it to signal that there are no errors when you're given a proper password. Okay, so let's just look at that. Let's give that a run. All right, and we're going to get a run. And they both work. So test case 1 passed, test case 2 also passed. All right. Now, we have a lot of common code between these two, right? So we're printing the name of a test case. We have an input password, expected result, actual result. And then we're going to print at the end either passed or failed. If you learn one of the formal testing frameworks, and there's more than one for Python, okay, some of this code will disappear because, typically each of your test case goes into its own function or method. And so, for instance, the title becomes the name of the method or function. Okay, and this visually showing whether you passed or failed, that becomes part of the framework as well. Typically what they do is for every test that passes, you see a green dot or a green bar gets longer, and for any pass that fails, you see a red dot or a part of a red bar. And of course, you want them all to pass, you want to see all green. So some of the code that we have here is just kind of simulating what a professional unit testing framework would look like. All right. So yeah, is it kind of duplicate code? Yes, it's kind of duplicate code. Are we going to worry about it? No, we're not. Okay. So you can clone one of these into the next. Okay. I'm going to copy them, but from my already baked version. But how did I create them? Well, I clone them. So what I'm going to do next, when I create my next one, is I'm going to show you how I would clone test case 2 into test case 3. Okay, I'm not ready for test case 3 yet because test case 3 has to do with the next of the conditions we want to put into the validation function. Okay, so I think we properly tested rule 1. What's rule 2? Well, rule 2 says it has to have at least one uppercase character. All right, now I'm going to copy that over. And again, here, I think it's okay to skip a line between these to add a little drama to make it easier to read. At least that's what I do. Okay. So what do we do? Well, we're searching for just one. We don't have to have more than one. So let's say So this square bracket part of the regular expression is a set, and we're describing what characters can be in that set, and it's uppercase A to uppercase Z. Okay, so we're looking for one of them. Okay, that's good. Now, what's the answer if it's not one of those? Well, the area is password must include at least one uppercase letter A to Z. Okay, that's pretty good. So we have our code in, but we don't have our test in. So we're going to go add a test. Now again, instead of copying this from my already baked solution, I'm going to clone this one. Okay, because that's what you're going to be doing, right? So is this really test case 3? No. Is it also test case 2? No, it's 3. So let's make it 3. And what do we want to do? Well, the first thing we want to test is, can we detect that we failed the code that we just put in? And what's going to be the error? Well, it's going to be password missing uppercase letter. Okay, so a password missing uppercase letter. Okay, so what would be an example of that? Well, let's say that we have two lowercase. So we've got like A, C. We have a special character, the ampersand. Okay, and then we have 4, 5, 6. So it's long enough. It has a special character. It has a lowercase alphabetic, but it doesn't have an uppercase. So we should be triggering the message for the uppercase. Okay. So what are we going to do? The expected result. Well, we're expecting to get the error message from up above. Okay, so here's what I can do. I can just copy it. Let's go find it. Password must include at least one uppercase. Isn't this the code that we're looking for? So instead of typing it in all again, let's go copy that down into the message, down into our message. So how does the list work? Well, you just put in it the literals that you expect to be in it. And so we're expecting a single string, and it's going to have exactly the error message that we put in. Okay. Okay, so that's the result we're expecting. The actual result is going to happen by calling validate a password with the input password, and then we've got the standard code in the end that we're going to leave the same. It's either going to print passed or failed, and we write all these so that they all pass, even if we're looking for if we're doing a validation, even if we're expecting the test case to fail the validation code, we're expecting the test case to pass if it properly detects the problem. So we're expecting pass, 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 pass all the way through. Okay, so we've done this. Let's run the test. Okay, we need 2 lines there to get rid of our gray squiggly. And we're going to run it again. So we're expecting a pass for test 3, and we have a test for test 3. Very nice. Okay. Okay. So uh, what are we gonna do? Do we do a good job of detecting when we have an uppercase letter? Yeah, we do. Um, One test case that really covers a lot of situations is a test case two. A password meets all criteria. Okay, this is a nice one to have pretty soon. And in fact, some people might have even put that first. I kind of like it exactly where it is. Okay, so is our second rule properly tested? Yeah, we can detect when we meet the criteria and we can detect when we don't meet the criteria. That's pretty clear. So I'm going to say that's good. All right. Okay. So now we're ready to add more validation code. Okay, so we said it had to have an uppercase letter. Didn't it also need a lowercase? Yeah, it did. So again, I'm going to copy this from my already baked version. You're going to have to type yours in. But of course, you can probably clone the one before. Okay. And let's see. Again, we're looking for uh, not search for, and then we have a set for the character that has the lowercase a through z. Okay, and if we don't have one, then the error message is password must include at least one lowercase letter, lower a to lower z. Okay, so we've got that code in, but do we have a test for it? Well, no, we don't. Okay. We have a test for a missing uppercase letter. Okay. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to copy in the test that I created. Could you clone the uppercase test 3 into the lowercase test 4? Sure, you could. And that's how I created it. But you don't have time to watch me do all the cloning that you're going to do. So let's see what test 4 is. Test 4, password missing lowercase letter. So the trick to these is to have it pass all the other tests. So it has a capital alphabetic. It has a special character. It is 6 characters long. Okay, so it passes all those, but it doesn't have a lowercase alpha. Okay, what's our expected result? Well, our expected result is the error message. Again, we could have copied the error message down here. And then the actual result, well, we get that by calling validate a password with the input. And then we've got the code in the end to test for whether it passed or not and print it. Okay, now, so we're getting a lot of code here. Good testing code takes up a lot of room. Okay, even when you're using a framework which gets rid of, say, the duplication of this code down here, they add up. Okay, and one of the reasons that your typical testing framework has companion modules. You have a production code module and a companion testing module, is just to segregate the test code into one spot so that it's not clogging up the production code. So we're about halfway there, but this is a good thing to do. So test 4 we've coded, but we haven't run. So I'm going to run it. Let's come down here and give it a run. And it looks like it ran. Okay, test case 4 passed. Beautiful. And again, we want all the test cases to pass, even if it's an example of the code that we're testing, finding data that is not valid. Okay, so we design each of the tests such that we create the input, and then we predict the output. And if we meet the prediction, then we pass. And if we don't meet the prediction, then we fail. Okay, this is just a formalization of what we've been doing of testing by inspection. When we test by inspection, we predict the output, and from the input we put the input in, and then we inspect the output. The problem is we have to remember all the tests, and we have to remember all of the outputs. The good thing about this kind of test is that we can come along later on and we can say, does this module pass all of its tests? And you run them and you go, yeah, they all passed. If you were using a testing framework, what would happen is you would see like a solid green bar. You go, yep, that's fine. And typically you can test a lot of modules all at the same time. So you could take 20 modules and highlight them all and say, I want to run the tests. And if it all comes back green, let's say that's your whole system with 20.py files. Well, if they all come back green, then your whole system has passed the unit tests. Okay, so again, we're doing a kind of a homegrown version. So this is an approach that kind of grew out of the classic inspection approach, but it's one that you don't have to remember what all the tests were or the output that you were expecting. And the problem is that when you're testing by inspection, there's kind of a natural tendency to see what you expect to see. Okay, whereas these tests, they're heartless. They're going to test for what's actually there. And so your mind can't kind of patch up a bad test and say, oh yeah, that's what I expected, when it really wasn't. So this is a good unit testing. Okay, so we have all that so far. So what are the rules that we have so far? Well, it has to be at least 6 characters long, 1 capital alpha, 1 lower alpha. Oh, we just have 1 more. We need to be able to make sure that we have a some kind of a special character. So let me go copy that. Okay. And let me take this code. And I can see here that I'm not using the parens. And was I using the parens? From my error message, I think I thought I was using the parens, but I'm not. So I take that back. So the parens are not included. Okay, so we don't have to escape any of these. I misspoke earlier. So it's the exclamation, the @ sign, the pound sign, the $sign. I'm thinking that we're going to have to escape the $sign. We haven't escaped the $sign though. Let's escape that. That's probably a bug. Okay? Because what's the normal meaning of a dollar sign? Well, match to the end of the string. It could be that if you type after the dollar sign, it implicitly escapes the dollar sign, but let's not count on that. Okay. So we escape the dollar sign, then the percent, then the circumflex, then the ampersand, then the asterisk. Okay. I like that. Oh, I know why. I know why. Let's go back. We didn't have to escape the dollar sign, and this is an important point. When we are in these square brackets, we are defining a set of characters. Okay, a character set. This is the character set of things that I will consider special characters, right? So when we're inside the square brackets, all of these symbols are taken literally. Okay, because they can't have their meta character meaning within here. So you don't have to escape them. And in fact, you shouldn't escape them. Okay, so in fact, if we had put the backslash in here, the backslash would have become one of our special characters, I believe. Although it PyCharm thinks that we're escaping it, but I don't think we actually are. Okay, so like that. Okay, so these are the characters in the set that we're going to consider. We need at least one of those, or if we don't have that, password must include at least one special character, and then we say what qualifies. That's good interaction design, I think. Okay, good. So what's the test for that? So as you can see here, right, this main. Let's get a look at this code here. Uh-oh, wrong one. Okay. You know, the main is long for a function or a method. Typically, I like something that will fit on the screen. Okay, it can be a little bit longer, but by the time we're done, this is going to be about 4 times that long. Now, are we going to want to factor those out? Actually, we're not going to factor those out. We're going to leave this as a long main. And why is that? Well, because if we were doing this in a real unit testing framework, okay, each of these would be inside of a method or function. And they, instead of having a print up here, it would be the name of the method or function. Okay, so the methods or the functions would have a reasonable size. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of simulate what it would be like to have a real unit testing framework. And if that leads to having a real long main in this module, that's okay. All right. All right, so now we've got 4 test cases, but we haven't tested for this special character. Okay, so let's do this. Interestingly, I do not have my next test as it currently sits is not for the special character. I didn't do that till number 6, but I'm going to renumber them here because I must have developed my example in a different order. I probably added in the special character later. Okay, so this is not test case 6, it's test case 5. Okay, that's fine. It's just a message anyway. So the input password, it has a capital, it has a lower, it's 6 long, but it doesn't have a special character. So what are we expecting? Well, we're expecting just the one that we had here, just the message that we just coded. And again, um, it's easiest just to copy the message. Okay, and then we're doing the standard stuff, and we're printing either passed or failed. So this is a test case 5. We're expecting this to pass. Let's give this a look. Let's give it a run. Okay, and test case 5 passed. That's beautiful. Okay. Now let's just, we've been kind of trusting these all along, but let's just prove to ourselves if we had written the test the wrong way. Okay. Um, that would have been caught. Okay, because here's what I want to say. If in fact you run your test cases and you get a fail, okay, there's one of two possibilities. One is that your production code, your real code, is wrong. You've made a coding error in the production code. Um, Possibility two is that your testing code is wrong. You've got two pieces of code and they have to agree. It's probably as likely that you have an error in your test code as you have an error in your production code. Okay, so let's go to my password module, and let's just take that last test. Okay, and let's add a $sign on the end. Okay, so now it has an uppercase. It has a special character. Well, that should break the test. Okay, because we're expecting it to come back and say, "Oh, you don't have a special character," but it's not going to, because it's there. So okay, we do that. We save it. Run it again. Test case 5 failed. Ooh, that's bad. And again, if we were in a proper unit testing framework in a tool like PyCharm, we would be seeing all green when they all pass, but we'd see some red pop up as soon as we hit the failure. And then we have to say to ourselves, oh, well, what's broken? Is it the test code or is it the production code itself? And then it's probably always good to look at the code that you just wrote, which is the test. And we look at the test and go, oh, that's not a proper test. Let's go and change that and save it and rerun the test. And there it is. It passed. Okay, so that was just a mistake in our test code. That's all right. Okay, are we done yet? Nearly. Okay, what haven't we tested? Well, we haven't tested the situation where we've got more than one error message at the same time, and that's a big part of our scheme. Okay, our interaction design is to give all the feedback that we can detect at one time. Okay, but we haven't tested that yet. So what would that look like? Well, in my pre-baked version, this is a test case 5, but it's now becoming a test case 6. All right. So what's this going to look like? Now, this is a lot of test code, but it does the job. Oh, I pasted it into the wrong program. Sorry. I'd like to say it's been a long day, but it's early in the morning here. Okay, paste it into into the right window. Very good. So we've got too many blank lines. Okay, it's not test case 5 because we have one. This is now test case 6. Okay, and it says password missing multiple of the criteria. Okay, so what do we have? Well, here's the password. We've input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So it's not 6 characters long, so we expect to get that error. It doesn't have an uppercase A to Z. We expect to get that error. It doesn't have a lowercase A to Z. We expect to get that error. And it doesn't have a special character. So we expect to get all 4 of them. Now, how can we easily create a test object to compare to an expected result? Well, here's what I do. And again, the Python is a really convenient language for this. I really love it. What I did is I built up the expected results. What I did is I created message 1 was the first of the messages. Message 2 was the second. Message 3 was the third. Message 4 was the fourth. And the expected result was message 1, message 2, message 3, message 4. Okay? And then again, I did the validation to get the actual, and I compared the actual to the expected, and I either passed or failed. Now, I want to point out that when we do a comparison like this, not only are we testing that each of the messages are in there, but we're also testing their order, because these objects would not be the same if the order were different. Okay, because lists have a deterministic order. Oh, okay, they maintain their order. Okay, so this is a good way to do it. We know a lot about this code, and we know that it's going to test these things in that order. It's okay to know that when you're in your unit test. So could you do a more sophisticated version where we could ask if each of these is in the expected result? Yeah, we could, but the more simple version works just fine. Okay, so test case 6 right here. Let's give that a run. So we're going to come down here and run it. Test case 6 passed. It's good. Okay, let's just make sure that this actually works. Like, what if we what if we weren't expecting one of these? Like, what if we weren't expecting the last one? Okay, so let's say, let's just say here that we're not expecting message 4. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this line. Okay, and I'm going to say the expected is the same, except that let me toggle the first one. We're saying that the expected is the same, but we're not expecting message 4. Will it detect that difference? And I'm going to say it will. I'm going to say we're going to get a test case 6 failed. Okay, let's look. Let's run the test. Test case 6 failed. Very good. All right, so let's go undo that. Get rid of the broken code. Reinstate the unbroken code. Okay, and then probably the last thing you always want to do is test. And they look like they all passed. Let's do a double click on this and make it look bigger. Yeah, pass, 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 pass. Beautiful. Now, that's a lot of testing, right? This is kind of testing that you do as a professional programmer, right? So for each piece of production code that you create, like our validate password, you have a corresponding set of tests which check whether it's actually doing what you expect it to be doing. Now, does it prove that it's correct? No, it doesn't prove that it's correct, but if you choose your test cases wisely, it does a really efficient job of finding all the errors in your code. Okay. Could you accidentally be short a test case or two? Sure, you could, right? But what's really nice is to the extent that you have a test code that continues to live side by side with the production code, you can always come back in and run the test. One of the things that I do every time I go to do maintenance on a program and I want to change its functionality, the first thing that I want to test is, does it pass all the unit tests currently? And so what, I'll come in and I'll find the code, I'll find the testing code. A lot of times it's in a companion module, and I'll run the test. And surprisingly enough, you sometimes will find that the last person who maintained the program never changed the test code and never ran it. So the first thing I have to do is to repair the test code. So the code that's actually there passes its test. Then I have to change the code to change the functionality, maybe add some functionality, and I have to add whatever additional tests that's going to need. But then the person who comes after me, they inherit all my tests. And how much do they have to know about the tests in order to run them? Well, they just have to be able to run them and see that they all pass. If they fail, then there's some work to do. Then you have to ask yourself, was it the test code that had a problem or the production code? All right, we're almost done. All right, so stay with me here. Remember, we have another module. We have one called Use My Password module. So let's just take a look at that. Okay, and let's close the test session because we're going to do this. So what does this look like? Well, we're going to prompt for the password candidate at the console. Okay, and then we're going to get a list of error messages back from the call to validate a password. Now, how can we use this in here? Well, we have imported it. So we've said from my password module, import validate password. Okay. And then we're going to do the same test. If the length of the error messages list is equal 0, then we're going to print this password is valid. Else we're going to print the list of error messages. All right, let's give this a run. So the first one, let's give it a valid password. So one capital alphabetic, one lowercase alphabetic, one special character, and then it's got to be 6 long, so 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's only 5. Sorry, run it again. Uppercase, lowercase, special character, 4, 5, 6. The password is valid. Okay, great. Let's run it again. Okay. And let's say we're not going to have an uppercase. So lower, special, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it found that. We needed one uppercase. Let's run it again. Let's miss the lowercase. Okay. Upper, special, 4, 5, 6. It found that. Okay. And then let's let's have a bad length. So let's run it one more time. And then let's do this. Let's do upper, lower, special. Oh, I don't think we did the special yet. Maybe we didn't, but we'll see. Upper, lower, lower, 4, 5, 6. This will say we don't have a special. We don't have a special. And then the length. Upper, lower, special, 4, 5. It's not long enough. All right. So not surprising that it works because it's already been fully unit tested. So we didn't have any real worries about that. So what did we prove here? Well, we proved that we were able to import the module, okay, and we were able to use it. And also we proved that when we imported the module, it didn't run the main in the module, which again has all the test code. And why is that? Because down here at the end of the module that holds the my password module, we don't just have a call to main. We check if it's equal to main. So it's only when we run this by itself that we run the test code. Okay. And again, for your reference, is this the way big-time professional Python programmers package their test code? No, probably not. They probably have it in its own module, and that module is sufficiently identified to the testing framework that you can run all the test modules all at once and all of those things. But this is as good a use of this test as anything. The only other thing that I would want to do in here is I would want to, if I had more than one function and they shared some kind of common data structure, I might want to initialize that. Okay. Apart from that, if I'm going to have a module that's just going to have callable functions, I'm not going to have a main. I'm not going to call main. I'm just going to have the functions, right? Okay, so this is it. Now, how's yours going to be different? Yours is going to you're going to check for some words that are illegal to have in your password. Okay, and I just want to remind you that we want to check for all case combinations of those words. So remember to shift the input to lower before you test it. That's all I'm going to say. All right, good luck with your version, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.